there's a lot of innovation in the way that Kennedy is running his campaign. He's the first candidate in history to accept Bitcoin donations and cryptocurrency. He's put forward some very innovative proposed policy about Bitcoin and backing our dollar with it. He's also, got this innovative idea of not running such a partisan campaign and welcoming people from across the political spectrum. It's also quite innovative in this day and age that he's not running a dirty campaign and he's not attacking his opponents. He's had nothing but really kind things to say about former President Trump. I mean, he'll attack him on the issues, but he doesn't engage in smears. He doesn't try to tear his opponents down. He's even been quite kind to Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden has certainly not been kind to him. So we are looking at innovative approaches. This is a very innovative campaign. We're trying to do something that's never been done before in the whole history of our country. And so speaking of innovation, I'd like to bring in my friend Caleb Maupin, who is the founder of the Center for Political Innovation. And I would just love to bring Caleb into this conversation if I can. I just sent him an invite. Let me try again. I'm not sure if that worked. Let me try this again. Caleb's also a reporter for RT Television News. As you know, a lot of us here probably used to enjoy watching RT America, which is now unfortunately off the air. And it's too bad because RT was the only network that you could get on your local cable or satellite provider that, lets you hear from candidates who were not in the mainstream, who were not Republicans and Democrats. One of the reasons that I really enjoyed RT during the elections of 2012 and 2016 and 2020 was they let us hear from the Libertarian candidates, from the Green Party candidates. Ron Paul was a frequent guest, so was Jill Stein, and people who are outside the mainstream. Unfortunately, we won't have RT America this election cycle unless something should change. It looks like RT is permanently off the air on all cable and satellite providers around the, Western Europe, Canada, the United States. RT is gone. RT is also censored completely on YouTube, as we talked about in our last space. But I wanted to bring Caleb in and get some of his insights because he's actually one of the smartest political observers that I know and really knows his history too, understands electoral politics, and most of all, he understands revolutionary moments. And people, we are in a revolutionary moment. This could turn out to be the most consequential and revolutionary election since the election of when Franklin Roosevelt defeated incumbent President Herbert Hoover during the Great Depression, and he brought us a New Deal. And I'm hoping that Robert Kennedy will bring the American people a New Deal right now, because boy, do we need one. Not only do we need another JFK, not only do we need another RFK, but I believe we need another FDR. And that's something that Caleb and I talk a lot about when we talk about history. We talk a lot about the FDR presidency, the United Front. Remember, folks, FDR was elected to 4 terms, and he didn't just do that with Democrats only. A lot of Republicans voted for FDR. A majority of the American people wanted to keep FDR as their president, and they did for 4 incredible, unprecedented terms because they liked how he put the people first. So, Caleb, why don't you unmute yourself, join the conversation, and tell us what you think of all this that's going on.
Well, the first thing that I have to say is probably one of the main reasons that I wanted to hop on and say something is because, now I have to clarify, the Center for Political Innovation is a nonprofit. We do not endorse any candidate. We don't campaign for anybody. But I am a huge fan of Nick Brana. Nick Brana is an utterly dynamic, amazing individual. And I really want the people listening right now to know why and how that is. There was a lot of talk in 2016 among Bernie supporters that maybe in the result of it being so obviously rigged against Bernie Sanders that maybe they ought to go form some new third party. Well, Nick made it happen. He made it happen. He did it. There was talk, last year that there needed to be a new anti-war movement that included a broader tent than just the typical, your typical leftover from the 1960s anti-war marchers. There was talk, maybe we should have a new anti-war movement. Nick made it happen. Rage Against the War Machine. And anyone who's watching Cornel West now, and he's disappointed a lot of us with some of his recent rhetoric, but you watch Cornel West on Fox News, you watch Cornel West on CNN, you watch this campaign that has generated a lot of energy. Nick made that happen. Cornel West running for president was Nick's personal creation. He worked on Cornel West for months, discussed it with him, and ultimately convinced Cornel West to run for president, regardless of how much Cornel may have let us down and moved away from the People's Party. It doesn't matter, because that campaign wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Nick Brana. Nick makes things happen. And I think that in this age of social media, a lot of people, they want to focus on, what people say. This person used this type of word, they use that type of word, little performative stunts on social media. But we lose track of how important it is to make things happen, to actually make things happen, get things done in the real world, bring people together into the same room to make things happen. And that is what Nick Brana is amazing at. And he's utterly amazing at. And I think about the people I know from the People's Party. They've got a great organizer here in New York City, a guy named Erebus. They've got an organizer in Vermont, a guy named Theo. They've got an organizer in Missouri. Her name is Megan. And these are great people. And, Nick is their leader very much. And he has held them together because they have been subject, and you saw when Cornel West announced, they just went after the People's Party.
Yeah, they went after the party, not the candidate. It was crazy.
I know. But Nick has held that group of people together amid everything that has been thrown at them. And they have thrown hell and high water at them. And that is why I am here. I just really want people to understand the importance of Nick Brana. We don't understand in the age of social media how important organizing skills really are and how important it is to be able to maneuver and negotiate. And the fact that he and Angela McCurdle organized that Rage Against the War Machine protest march that happened, that was historic. You have to remember, there hasn't been a big anti-war rally like that in Washington, D.C. since the invasion of Iraq, since the first term of President Bush. And it was huge, and the establishment pulled out all the stops to try and prevent that rally from happening. But Nick held it together. He got quite a diverse group of people there. He negotiated with the libertarians. He negotiated with the left and with the right and with different commentators and different people, and he did something utterly amazing. And so I really want the audience here to know who Nick is and know how important he is, because we don't put enough stock in action. We give all this attention to words, and I can't hammer that point home enough. I am such an admirer and a fan of Nick Brana, and I really want people to know that. It's been an honor that Nick has come and spoken at Center for Political Innovation events before. It's been an honor to know kind of the inner circle of the People's Party that he pulls off these operations with and gets so much done with. It's a small group of people that's so dedicated and representing, really the sentiments of millions of people in this country. It's really, really dynamic what Nick has done. It's funny, I'm listening to this conversation about RFK and all the things that they're doing to prevent RFK from speaking and to prevent RFK's campaign from being taken seriously. And it puts a smile on my face because there's a quote that gets thrown around by leftists a lot, and they usually throw it around to mean the opposite of what I'm using it to mean in this context. But it was Emma Goldman. Do folks know Emma Goldman, the famous libertarian, anarchist, socialist figure in the early 20th century? Emma Goldman said, if voting could change anything, they would make it illegal. And usually people quote that to say, oh, you shouldn't vote, it's a waste of time. But it's ironic because now we're seeing a situation where voting could actually change something. And so they're moving ahead to make it illegal. They didn't have to do that. When Dennis Kucinich ran for president, I remember when I was a kid, every Democrat primary, there was always a far-left Democrat, Dennis Kucinich or, Al Sharpton or somebody like that would run. and they wouldn't be taken
Or
seriously.
the great Mike Gravel. Don't forget good old Mike Gravel, who gave him hell in
Yeah.
2008 on the debate.
Or Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown often used to be kind of the face of the left wing of the Democratic Party, and they would run a campaign, and they would lose, and they would bow out and tell their supporters to vote for the regular Democrat, and they didn't have to make it illegal, and they didn't have to suppress them on social media, and they didn't have to run big, long, lengthy hit pieces in the New York Times against them, and they didn't have to do any of that, right? They didn't have to rig the primary against them because there was no danger of them actually doing anything. But what happened in 2016, I was there at the Philadelphia convention covering it for RT, and what I saw was history in the making. That has never happened before. Even though Bernie wanted to do that, he tried to just bow out and do what they normally do, but the people that supported Bernie Sanders weren't going to take it. And that was history in the making, and things are really changing. And we're entering a situation where voting could actually change things. I mean, where, the kind of candidate that gets elected, you saw how much they are determined to make sure Donald Trump doesn't come back into office, how they're charging him with crimes, how January 6th, they've made that into the event they want to talk about nonstop for highly political reasons. And we're in a period where there are big divisions among our ruling elite, and who you vote for may make a big difference. So I'm not discouraging anyone from voting, but I want to add that, what do people do when they can't vote? What do people do when they feel like their votes are not heard, when their ability to express themselves is not available at the ballot box? They go out and protest. And at the same time that they are tightening up the electoral system and imposing these new rules to push out RFK, they are making it illegal to protest in the United States. And this is something that it's coming from every different angle. I talk about how there's this group called the Uhuru Movement, the African People's Socialist Party. They have been indicted by the U.S. federal government. They're facing 10 years in prison for organizing some web conferences, publishing some articles, just criticizing U.S. foreign policy, supporting Russia in the Ukraine conflict. And they want to make that criminal. They want to make that being a foreign agent. And that's really disturbing. And we saw that Marco Rubio recently called for prosecutions of a whole bunch of people for allegedly being Chinese agents. He wants to expand that. We also saw that a group of abortion protesters in Washington, D.C., and forget, I'm pro-choice. There's many people that are anti-choice. That's not the issue here, right? But these anti-abortion protesters in Washington, D.C., during their protest against abortion, they blocked the door to an abortion clinic. Well, that's technically a crime, but they called it conspiracy to violate civil rights. They were convicted in federal court of conspiracy to violate civil rights. And all 5 of them are now facing decades in prison for blocking doors. And I'm thinking about, the United Auto Workers, the UAW, they're going to be on strike pretty soon. The big 3, GM, Chrysler, and Ford, are about to go on strike. What do striking workers do all the time on the picket line? They block the doors. Are they going to prosecute the GM workers if they block a truck from going into the plant when they're on the picket line? Are they going to say that's a conspiracy to violate the scab's right to enter the plant, to violate his civil rights? This is insanity. We've seen the huge sentences they've handed down to these January 6th protesters, calling it insurrection, a conspiracy against the government. We can agree that maybe people shouldn't be trespassing into the Capitol, maybe people shouldn't be engaging in rowdy vandalism, but the sentences they're giving them are astronomical and insane. And that all around, from the left, from the right, from the center, they are cracking down on the freedom to protest right now. And this is something we should all be concerned about. And it parallels, at the same time, the restriction on the elections and the limiting of political discourse and the edging out of some candidates and the tech censorship and all of that. It's part of the same process. I would argue that because of artificial intelligence, there's millions and millions of people that no longer have a place in the process of production at the assembly line. And we have a situation where it's easier than ever to make products, easier than ever before, but the wages that are being paid out to people are not enough to buy them back. This is a long-term crisis of overproduction. And so they're trying to stabilize society with a heavy-handed crackdown. This is some kind of fascism that's gradually emerging. That's not an epithet to be thrown at any individual. That's the direction U.S. society is going in. We're moving towards some kind of authoritarian fascist state based on the fundamental breakdown of our economic system. And that, we see the economic problems that are on the horizon, and that is the basis for the rising unrest. That's also the basis for the centralization of power and the authoritarianism that we're seeing. But in this context, with our ability to vote being, and the elections being more and more controlled and less free and democratic, and with threats to the ability to protest, I would argue that what Nick and Angela McCurdle and so many others did last February is something that needs to be done more than ever. We need to show the government, the war makers, the billionaires, the military. We need to show those forces that we are not afraid to use our free speech, that we are not afraid to protest. I am excited about, the continued work of the Rage Against the War Machine Coalition. I understand there may be some plans in the process coming up for some more actions by the Rage Against the War Machine Coalition, and I really hope that's the case, because what they did last year was so dynamic, what they did back in February. But I also want to mention that one thing we are planning to do as the Center for Political Innovation is coming up in December, which is quite a long way away. I mean, it's only September here. We are planning in December 2nd in Portland, Oregon. We are planning to have an all-day anti-imperialist mega rally that we are going to have. It's going to be in Portland, Oregon. We have a beautiful venue that we've already reserved. It's just a beautiful facility that has agreed to facilitate us, that is not worried about attacks on free speech, etc. It holds 250 people. We are going to fill that place up for an all-day rally with libertarians, with socialists, with anti-war voices, progressives and conservatives and MAGA people, and anyone who's against the drive for war. We are going to have buses from Seattle to take people from Seattle to Portland. We're going to have buses from Northern California to take people up to Portland. And we are going to fill that auditorium and have a one-day mega rally in Portland, Oregon, themed around opposing imperialism. And we are sponsoring it. And, we're talking to different people. I've talked to Nick and some others about, coming to be speakers, etc. And we want this event in Portland, Oregon, to go down in history as a moment where people came together to say, we are not afraid. We are not afraid. We see the direction this country is going in, and we are going to join arm in arm with people we may not necessarily agree with, people that we might have differences with. We are going to join arm in arm with them to build the movement that this country desperately needs. They want us to sit at home and be isolated on the internet. They want us to sit at home and critique each other and try to claim we're the most revolutionary or we're the best. But what matters is the kind of stuff that Nick does, is when he makes things happen. And that's what the Center for Political Innovation wants to do. We want to make things happen. We want to give a voice to people from different perspectives who oppose the way things are going. We want to build a community of anti-imperialists and resistance. And so we are committed to making it happen. Look, the winter is a cold time to have big outdoor rallies. It snows, etc. So we're going to have an indoor day of strategy meetings and speeches and all of that. Beautiful venue in Portland, Oregon. And I hope that people will put that on their calendar and remember it because it's going to be important. And people from around the country are coming in, from Chicago, from Florida, from different places like that. We think that this is a turning point. This is a time that's going to be looked back on in American history. People remember the 60s. People remember the 1930s. People remember the Civil War and Abraham Lincoln. We are entering such times. And, you can view it, we're constantly viewing it as, oh, we're living in hard times. Oh, the world's coming to an end. I think we should have the opposite perspective. We're lucky. We're so lucky to be living in these times because we're going to be remembered as the Americans who made history. Right? People are going to look back on the people living in 2023 the way they look back on George Washington and the people in the winter at Valley Forge that endured all of that. People are going to look back on us the way they look back on Abraham Lincoln and Harriet Tubman and the beautiful coalition they built to defeat slavery. We are lucky because we have the opportunity to rediscover the heroism that flows through the blood of the American people, to kind of get over this image of a drugged up culture of lazy people who don't believe in anything anymore. We have been given an opportunity by history to really rediscover who we are. So I'm very excited, and I try to keep an optimistic perspective on living in these times because, I feel like we wouldn't have been born in the time that we were born, and we wouldn't be active politically now if there wasn't some kind of higher power that felt that we were up to the challenge, that felt that we were the ones who should be right here, right now to get this done. So I want to encourage everyone who's listening right now, everyone who supports RFK, everyone who supports Cornel West, everyone who's campaigning for the libertarians. I know Mike Mater is a libertarian who's a big supporter of anti-war activism. It was an honor to meet him at August 6th at the big anti-war rally we had here in New York City. That was really, really great. And I know there's a lot of different voices. I think one of the socialist groups announced a candidate. But let's build some action in the street. Let's defend the right to free and open and fair elections. And let's plan to build a in real life anti-war movement. That is my perspective here. And I want to thank Lori. Lori, you invite me on these spaces so many times, and I'm honored every time you do it, And you yourself have been subject to so much tech censorship, right? They are terrified of you. How many YouTube channels have you set up that they've shut down now?
Oh my gosh, I've lost count, Caleb.
It's wild.
I've lost count.
It's wild. It is utterly wild. Well, I am on your side.
Maverick News is in YouTube jail right now. Our main Maverick News channel is still on a 2-week ban from YouTube. So it's ongoing.
Absolutely. Well, I'm here to just tell you how great your guest, Nick Brana, is, to also salute you for keeping this YouTube space or this Twitter space community alive and all that you do, and just encourage everyone to keep a positive attitude as we build. And it's time to build. It's time to connect with people. It's time to join arm in arm. Now is the time.
Couldn't agree more. And that's what I love about you, Caleb, and what I love about Nick and Christina Tobin. You guys aren't just talkers. You're doers. You do stuff. And, you're a frequent guest with us on Maverick News, and you've been on Strange Bedfellows podcast with me many times. I love talking to you. I love getting your insights. And I wanted to ask you a question because you're probably the most impartial person on this panel. CPI, your organization, is not partisan. It's not a political party. Of course, with Bobby Kennedy exploring other alternatives to the Democratic Party, naturally we're bringing a lot of people into this space tonight, asking them to make their pitch for their party, why Kennedy should run with the Republicans, why Kennedy should run with the Libertarians or the Greens or the Forward Party or the People's Party or independent, no party at all. But you're coming at this from a different perspective in that you're not a partisan, you're not a member of any party, you're not leading any party, and you really don't have a dog in this fight. So I feel like you're maybe the most impartial voice that we have on this panel, and you're also one of the smartest political observers that I know. So I just wanted to ask you, Caleb, do you think that Bobby Kennedy should leave the Democratic Party, and what do you think is the best path forward for Kennedy and his campaign?
I always tell people that, if somebody doesn't want you, there's no reason to stick around. I mean, if they've gone to the length of not having a debate, and they're not even going to have debates, just to make clear they don't want to treat RFK like a real candidate. They're trying to claim he's a Trump, surrogate, etc. I mean, it looks to me like sticking in the Democratic Party is not really going to help RFK at all. Now, again, I'm giving that perspective. Now, would he run as a third-party candidate? I mean, I'm curious about the ability of him to get on the ballot, because that's going to be a challenge. Because, if he's not being treated as a real candidate by the Democratic Party, he needs to then make sure he can get on the ballot with another party. And that's going to be a challenge. So if he's going to make a decision to leave the Democratic Party, he needs to do it soon. If not, his campaign is going to end. Is going to end as soon as the Democratic primary ends. And we have a feeling the Democratic primary is going to end without him being treated as a serious candidate. And so I would think that if he needs to leave the Democratic Party, he should do it soon. Whether he's going to run as an independent and have people petition to get him on the ballot, or run with a third party or multiple third parties, right? I mean, there's no law that says only one third party can endorse somebody, right? I think he needs to make that decision as soon as he possibly can. That's all I can say about that. And, like I said, I do want to make clear, I'm not here to endorse and any candidate or campaign for anybody. And, there are things that RFK has said I disagree with, just like there are things Cornel West has said or others that have said. And I'm not, my role is not as a political campaigner. I'm not partisan in all of this, but I'm just reflecting based on the question you asked about, strategy. If he's going to leave, he ought to do it soon. That's all I can say about that. And that, RFK, it reminds me of so many of these socialists and communists that I talk to, where it has been made overwhelmingly clear to them by the Democrats that the Democrats do not want them. The Democrats don't want their support. The Democrats don't want them to go out and campaign for them. The Democrats don't want them to lead anti-Trump mobilizations. So why are they campaigning for the Democrats? Why are they joining this Stop Trump facade? I heard that debate where Cornel West and Jimmy Dore were going at it. And Cornel West is repeating, oh, Trump is a fascist, Trump is a fascist. What do you gain by saying that, right? That's the rhetoric of the Democrats that leads people to vote for the Democratic Party. You're running against the Democrats. I mean, and it's just, there is this abusive relationship between the Democratic Party and the so-called progressive left or the socialists, where they go out and campaign for the Democrats, and the Democrats don't give them anything, and in some cases do the exact opposite of what they want, and they every time go back to the table and vote for the Democrats. And it's just, sometimes you have to be objective, and you have to say, look, I know you're trying to scare us with Trump said this or Trump did that, but, we survived 4 years under Trump. And Trump wouldn't have won if there had been a real alternative to him that actually could deliver on things. So, and Trump was president for 4 years. We didn't die. So maybe people need to just kind of say, look, Trump getting elected is not the end of the world. Trump being a fascist or being the equivalent of Hitler, as much as I might disagree with things he did, that's ridiculous, right? We didn't all go to gas chambers and die during the Trump presidency. And many of the things I objected to about Donald Trump are worse under Biden. So, based on that, I think people need to just kind of say, look, we're not getting anything out of this relationship with the Democratic Party, whether it's a straight up campaigning for the Democrats or whether it's claiming to be independent, but always, having this underlying message of the right wing or the main threat, Trump is a fascist. I think a lot of people on the so-called progressive left need to just look themselves in the mirror and say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this at this time? Because what I saw at the Philadelphia convention in 2016, that was history in the making, right? That is a turning point. And if people can't wake up now and say the Democratic Party doesn't want us, we can go elsewhere, I don't know what's going to wake them up.
Me neither. And, speaking of Trump and the Republican Party, and I'm hoping that if we have any Republicans here in this space who would like to speak, who would like to make a case, as if you were talking to Bobby himself, if you were sitting in the room with him and you wanted him to switch parties, leave the Democrats and join the Republican Party, if you think he could beat Trump for the nomination, I would love to hear from you. I would really be curious to hear your thoughts. I have invited several Republicans into the space, and I hope they will join. I hope they will speak up. Unfortunately, folks, we are dealing with a rigged two-party system. As we talked about earlier, independent candidates, third-party candidates have a very difficult time getting ballot access, getting access to the debate stage. The debates are rigged. So, that kind of leaves Kennedy weighing, do I run as a Republican or do I run as a Democrat? According to the poll I'm running, there isn't much support, it seems, for him to make a run with the Republican Party. I'm only seeing about 8% are wanting him to run as a Republican right now. But, let's be honest. I think if he did switch parties and run as a Republican, he would have a much better shot in that party. Their primary system is more fair. They don't have superdelegates. He would have a chance to be on the debate stage. He would be allowed to debate. They are having debates on the Republican side this year. And I think he would mop the floor with most of the Republican candidates. I would love to see him debate Donald Trump. And I hope that if he did choose to go Republican, that debate would happen with Donald Trump. I think it would be amazing to watch. And yes, I do believe that Robert Kennedy could defeat Donald Trump and win the Republican nomination. And then Biden would have to debate him. So you see, there's a method to my madness here and why I'm coming at it from that direction. But the main thing that I notice, and I've been a volunteer for this campaign since day one, is that the majority of our donors of our supporters, the people who really love Bobby and have embraced him, are on the right. People who were once Republicans, maybe they're still Republicans, but they really like him. They like his message. And many of them say to me that they feel Kennedy would actually drain the swamp. You know, Donald Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, and he promised to do a lot of things. But then he failed us in so many ways. I supported Trump in 2016. I did not support him in 2020 because he lost me right off the bat when he became president, and immediately his Justice Department and his CIA and Mike Pompeo said that going after WikiLeaks was going to be a big priority. And sure enough, they did. They arrested Julian Assange. They dragged him out of the Ecuadorian embassy, kicking and screaming. They are prosecuting him under the Espionage Act. They're looking to lock Assange up for 175 years simply for doing journalism, and they are murdering him. Remember, it was Trump's CIA under Mike Pompeo who had a plan to kidnap or even assassinate Julian Assange, a journalist. That to me is just shocking. Also, Trump lost me when he had the chance in October 2017 to declassify and release all of the secret JFK files. 60 years after the assassination of President Kennedy, we're coming up on the 60th anniversary here in November. And Trump had every opportunity. It came up on his watch twice. And he said he was going to do it. He said, I'm going to release it all. I'm going to release everything. And then he didn't. Trump also armed Ukraine. He sent more money and weapons to Ukraine than any president before him in his time. Now, of course, he did not start a war with Russia. I don't think he was crazy enough to do that. But he did, lay the groundwork for the war that we're in right now, and that Biden has escalated beyond all imagination. So I actually feel that Bobby Kennedy might do pretty well in the Republican Party. I realize that's probably not a popular opinion here with my friends on the left. They might not want to see that. And yes, there is the question, would Democrats actually defect and bring themselves to hold their nose and vote for a Republican, maybe for the first time in their entire lives? I think they would probably be more likely to vote for an independent so that they don't feel that they've gone to the dark side and, joined the Republican Party. But, that never bothered me. I voted for Ron Paul time and time again. Even though I'm a libertarian and he's a Republican, I understood that he was the best man for the job, and it didn't matter to me which party he was running in. I feel very much the same way about Kennedy if he switches parties. Again, I left the Democratic Party 30 years ago. I can't stand the Democratic Party. It's going to hurt a lot if I have to go change my voter registration next year back to Democrat for the first time in 30 years. But I'll do it. If he wants to run as a Democrat, fine, I'll support him. I'll vote for him. I don't care what party he's in. I just want him to run. I want him to win. I don't want this to be a campaign that's just about making a point or starting a conversation. I know a lot of people say, well, that's good enough. As long as we're having the national conversation about these issues, then Bobby has succeeded. And I say, no, I want better than that. You might have noticed here at the top of this space why I'm so passionate about this. I started trying to convince Bobby to run for the White House 16 years ago, back in 2007. I saw Barack Obama coming. I knew that Barack Obama was a